second in a row, and Clark stays red hot.
I feel like I would be a really good ref, though, from the side.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't miss the call.
Backseat reffing.
After 20 dragging days wasted on the bench with injury, Caitlin Clark stumbled back like she had something to prove, but chose the worst opponent imaginable, the unbeaten New York Liberty. From the second she touched the floor, it felt like her absence still lingered.
Nicely done to get it inside to Mitchell. Those two have such a great connection, especially.
This might just be Caitlin Clark's most overhyped showing yet. Reckless NBA range heaves, padded stats, and a desperate flash of glory the WNBA's barely bothered to notice. On her very first trip up the floor, she rushed without control, tossing a flashy no-look pass more for show than substance, pretending it set any tone. The forced connection returned as she forced Aaliyah Boston battling inside. Then in transition, Boston was left sprinting blindly, guessing at chaos. Clark fired a wild rocket straight out of a quarterback's low-light reel.
Caitlin Clark!
That had the crowd fooled, gasping an empty flare. 3 assists with 3 minutes still left in the first quarter, and she hadn't even managed a single point. Then came the try-hard moment. She shook a defender with sloppy handles, stumbled through contact, and lucked into the and one. That's Clark's gimmick. But with just 1:30 left in the first, the so-called magic collapsed into cheap stat chasing. 3 rushed threes in under a minute. And not disciplined shots. 2 were reckless bombs from 30 feet, at least 6 beyond the NBA line.
And then steps back with the 3 over Brianna.
That's not just deep, that's reckless. Steph Curry wannabe range. And here's the ugly truth. She'd been out for nearly 3 weeks. No rhythm, no real prep, just reckless chucking from the start. Just reckless chucking. And when the Liberty backed off her to open the second quarter, Clark lucked into the shot and fans acted like it mattered. It was obvious noise. The streak was never sustainable. She was so hyped up, even her routine freebie after a foul looked fake, barely brushed the rim.
Clark last played for Indiana against New York, and now she takes it in off glass and has a chance for a 3-point.
Sitting on 4 threes and 17 points, while the rest of the Fever roster looked useless, not hitting a single shot. This wasn't basketball. This was a broken video game exploit. Caitlin Clark had now jacked in 5 straight threes in the first half, 3 of them in a frantic, desperate 38 seconds. And with Lexi Hall finally throwing in a couple, the Fever were clinging to some hollow franchise record chase. But Liberty's bruiser, Natasha Cloud, wasn't buying the hype. She went straight physical, bodying Clark with hits and cheap bumps. Truth is, that kind of treatment has become routine in the WNBA. But tonight, even that didn't expose her. And just when you thought her last forced pass was the lowlight, she doubled down, forcing yet another deep chuck before halftime. She was overeager. This was simply the loudest half of her short WNBA career, propping the Fever barely afloat, hitting 66% from deep while chasing attention.
Founding team this season.
But there was one glaring problem. The Fever couldn't hit a layup to save their lives. Wide open gimmies rimmed out, killing any chance of taking the lead. The third quarter tipped off, and Clark was still out there trying to clown the Liberty's defense like it was a joke. She opened the half with empty swagger, squeezing through doubles and throwing passes to teammates too stunned to even realize they were supposed to catch them. But then it got messy. New York started hammering her. Hard screens, cheap elbows, whatever it took to slow the circus act. Their faces showed the irritation. This was the unbeaten juggernaut, getting annoyed by one player just back from 20 days of rehab. Still, Clark pretended unbothered. She tossed another flashy dime to Aaliyah Boston for a pity bucket, then forced a deep step-back 3 so far out the crowd stood out of shock more than awe. The Fever fed off her noise, but every surge was smacked down instantly by Liberty's real big shots.
Clark nails it. A 17-0 run.
Sabrina Ionescu and Brianna Stumert finally turned it on, reminding everyone why the Liberty hadn't lost a single game. Then came the overhyped moment that almost blew the roof off. Clark chucked it from logo range. The crowd lost its mind, only for the shot to clang out. Even in a miss, the fake statement was obvious. She was desperate to prove something. Heading into the last frame, the Fever were still barely hanging on, and Clark was still one gamble away from throwing the whole game into chaos. The fourth quarter opened like a sloppy heavyweight brawl. Every possession felt like it might break either way. Clark came out forcing it, flinging passes and barreling into drives that looked more reckless than fearless. You could read it in her face. She craved this win. But the Liberty had zero interest in giving up their spotless record. Stewart owned the post, and Ionescu buried dagger threes. Every time the Fever crept close, New York slammed the door. Then came the collapse.
You get with Clark is great pace and great passes. Found Boston perfectly.
Clark juked her defender with a desperate crossover, stepped back way past NBA range, and somehow drilled it in her face. The arena overreacted, acting like the Liberty streak was suddenly in danger, but New York's poise told the truth. They slowed things down, forced the Fever into ugly shots, and stacked just enough stops to keep control. Clark tried to drag her team back, tossing flashy passes, flopping for fouls, and even chasing a rebound like it was her last breath. But her teammates' clanked layups killed every ounce of momentum. With under a minute left, Clark hoisted one last deep three, refusing to fade quietly. The Liberty still walked off unbeaten, barely breaking a sweat. And yet people spun it like Clark scared them. In reality, she reminded the league that when she's locked in, she's still a chaotic wild card, not a guaranteed closer. After the buzzer, the Liberty celebrated like they'd survived an upset. But really, they just survived hype. That's all this game ever was. Noise over substance.
Clark, another long three. She's back.
Clark had dragged them close, but not over, and the Liberty knew it. You could see the relief on their faces as they walked off, and the frustration all over hers. Reporters swarmed instantly, grilling her about the cheap hits, the missed whistles, and the almost but not quite upset. Clark dodged the excuses, smirked, and muttered, "We'll see them again." It sounded more like false bravado than a threat. Social media still lost its mind within minutes. Clips of her desperate 30-foot chucks, gimmicky no-look passes, and forced stare-down after an and one flooded timelines. Fans spun it into one of the best individual showings of the year. And all this after nearly 3 weeks on the sideline. Meanwhile, the conversation shifted to fantasy scenarios. If the Fever can barely survive against an unbeaten giant, what happens when Clark actually gets real help? What happens if teammates start hitting layups and making her stat padding look like real playmaking? For now, it's all noise. Empty questions after another moral victory.
Until last night, this run. Oh, that's a nice little fake by Boston.
The answer might not shake up anything, but one thing's clear. Tonight wasn't some epic breakthrough. It was an overblown stunt. Caitlin Clark didn't just return. She patted the scoreboard, briefly rattled the league's top team, and screamed for attention. She's chasing everyone, but slowing down isn't even an option when hype is all you've got. By the next morning, the WNBA wasn't buzzing over a win, it was gossiping about Clark's act. Coaches, players, analysts, everyone weighed in. Some praised her blind gunning, others wondered why the Liberty even bothered with borderline fouls to stop a player who still lost. Either way, the narrative was hijacked. She'd stolen noise from the league's actual unbeaten powerhouse. Clips of her frantic 3 and 38 seconds spree were plastered on every highlight show, fans eating it up like it was greatness. Even NBA voices jumped online, hyping her wild range and fake ice-cold confidence. The spotlight wasn't earned, it was manufactured.
Challenging part of like all this. So obviously I have the first injury and I sit out 4 games and then I come back and I play really well.
Yeah.
And I feel really good. And like even this beginning of the year, like I played great. Like I started the year really good. Like I felt really great. Like my numbers were great. I was shooting the ball well. And then I get hurt and it's like, okay, like you got to get healthy, whatever. You're like, I'm going to do whatever I can, you know, to get back to what I was doing and whatever.
One thing's obvious. The Liberty might still be spotless on paper, but in the court of hype and noise, Caitlin Clark just gave them an exaggerated scare that never really threatened their streak. The chatter from Clark's so-called showdown with New York barely cooled before the Fever's next supposed test got hyped. And the setup couldn't be cheesier. Their upcoming opponent, a squad that's been running its mouth all season, claiming Indiana can't hang with contenders. After Clark's frantic display against the league's best, those words might still stand just fine. You can sense the overreaction in the Fever's camp. Practices look frantic, the bench is louder, and everyone's pretending chemistry suddenly clicked overnight. Players like Lexi Hall and Aaliyah Boston are riding Clark's inflated swagger. That shaky confidence is spilling into drills, reps, and film like a temporary sugar rush. And the fans? They're already overselling this next matchup, treating it like some playoff preview when it's still just another regular season grind.
Growth that we've had as a team, because early in the season we were just so inconsistent, and if teams were to do that, we would normally lose those games, but it just shows that we're getting closer, we're trusting each other, and I think that's the biggest part, is trusting and knowing that we can win those games even if they go.
Ticket sales are spiking, mostly off hype. The arena will be packed, more for the spectacle than the basketball. And social media is already drowning in wild takes about Clark going nuclear again. Everyone's asking the wrong question. Was the Liberty game a genuine breakthrough or just a one-night stunt? And here's the truth. Clark isn't just talking about shooting better. She's selling the idea of finishing games, as if the Fever actually had control. She knows they had a slim chance to upset the undefeated champs, but that chance slipped, and it wasn't coming back. If the Fever bring the same frantic energy and somehow clean up layup after layup, maybe they can pretend this next game matters. But let's be real. Turning their season from developing to dangerous is still a stretch. The league isn't shaking. It's watching Clark overheat, chasing targets like hype is fuel.
Been hard.
Yeah.
Well, like, I'm gonna go to every road game no matter what, like whether I'm playing or not. Like, and it's hard because obviously I do feel this like responsibility of like being out there and playing, and like, not that I like think there's like a fear of any of this ever going away. Like, that doesn't happen when like LeBron or Steph get hurt. Like, they're always going to be there. Like, you know, yeah, exactly. So, but like, you do want to play. Like, you want to give people something to cheer about or scream about, or, you know, people spend so much time and money and resources to come.
Clark's upcoming opponent might flash a pretty offense, but their perimeter defense isn't some goldmine. It's just average. Guards close late, rotations drag, and in transition, they're shaky. But acting like it's open season for Clark is pure wishful thinking. Word inside the Fever camp claims she's already plotting to exploit those holes, push the pace, and drag defenders into chaos, forcing them so far out they look like they're guarding from the parking lot. In reality, that's a gamble. And once the defense shifts, people expect Aaliyah Boston to feast in the paint like it's automatic. But it's not just about scoring, right? Clark's also talking about setting a physical tone. After taking all those shots from New York, she now wants to flip the script and throw pressure back early. The Fever's guards claim they're preparing to trap, create turnovers, and run, but it sounds more like desperate hope than real execution.
Oh! That's a PNW win! W's in the chat.
W's in the chat.
Oh my gosh. That one just aged me, but we're getting better. Shoot, good win. Win's for win.
A dub is a dub, so keep on.
The key will be pretending they can hold rhythm for all 4 quarters. No brain-dead lapses, no endless parade of botched layups. If they actually pair Clark's wild heaves with Boston's brute force inside game and Hull's streak or bust shooting, maybe they could bury someone before halftime. But don't bet on it. One thing's obvious, the Fever aren't just coming to play. They're coming to overcompensate, desperate to prove the Liberty game wasn't just smoke and mirrors. Clark's hyped as locked in, already hunting her next victim. Truth is, she could have been padding a double-double by halftime if her teammates hadn't kept bricking layups even a middle schooler finishes. Instead of sulking, she went into overdrive, trying to play defensive savior, jumping passing lanes, gambling on cuts, and forcing turnovers like she'd crammed the other team's playbook yesterday. Finally, halfway through the third, the so-called engine sputtered to life. First, Hull drilled a corner 3 that looked more lucky than lethal. Then Boston went full bully mode in the paint, piling up buckets that made the Liberty's bigs look momentarily clueless.
It's been so hard because like I've never really dealt with injury, and that's probably been a challenge in itself because like when I first like was feeling pain, like I didn't understand it. Like I didn't know. I was like, am I just tight? Like, am I just getting old? Do I need to hit a stretch? Do I need to get like a little rubbed out? Do I need some icy hot? Like what's going on here? So I think it's been a balance of like understanding that my body and I know like, you know, whether it's this year, whether it's next year, and even throughout my career, I'm going to be very thankful.
And with defenders suddenly terrified of her passing lanes, Clark tried flipping the script, driving to the basket with forced intent, slicing through traffic like chaos itself. It looked flashy, but it reeked of desperation. Reckless slashing dressed up as brilliance. She slipped into that so-called flow state, but it wasn't serenity. It was tunnel vision. Calm? Hardly. Locked in? More like stubborn. Untouchable? Only until the defense adjusted. Still, with a defender draped across her shoulders, she flung up her 7th three of the night, and somehow it dropped. The crowd roared like this was divine intervention. Nights like this are sold as must-see, but it's smoke and mirrors disguised as greatness. The ad breaks pushing ticket codes only made it feel cheaper, like hype merch disguised as history. By then, she had 30 points, and there was still a quarter and a half left, but the cracks were widening. Natasha Cloud got baited into dumb fouls and sat, leaving her teammates to deal with the mess. Even as the pace slowed, Hull was busy chasing her hat trick of blown layups, fumbling momentum possession after possession. By the end, Clark's assist numbers looked less like a stat 9 and more like a crime scene. Opportunities murdered in broad daylight by teammates who couldn't finish.
A lot of ups and downs in the WNBA this season. To take care of business in a winning streak like this, what does that sort of say about how this team's come together?
Yeah, you know, Seattle's a great team, great team, and it's hard to play here. And so we knew that. We knew that they just came off kind of a bad loss against LA. And so they were hungry for a win. But for us, it's not about other teams. It's about our standard. It's about stacking the days. And I think that where our mental's at as a team and as individuals, we're in a really good spot. And, you know, it's not going to be easy moving forward. But I think today we stayed true to the scout. We trusted the offense. Kelsey has been having a hell of a season. She was a little bit off, but she facilitated for us offensively down the stretch. And it just shows that everyone has something to give, even if your scoring's not going to be there. But I don't know, I'm just proud of our team, and I'm proud that we
Thankfully, Hull finally bailed herself out in the fourth, salvaging a shred of pride after spending most of the night sabotaging possessions. And when Clark started dribbling literal circles around the defense, the crowd pretended it was dominance, when really it looked more like showboating with defenders too gassed to care. Still, the Fever scraped together stops in the final 2 minutes, stumbling into a win they nearly fumbled away. Clark's stat line? Sure, on paper it was a monster. 32 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds. But look closer. 2 more boards, 1 teammate hitting a wide-open bunny, and suddenly the spin machine would have sold us a historic triple-double. Truth is, the league couldn't handle that much manufactured history crammed into one night. It would have been too convenient. 7 threes, a franchise record, and a performance hyped as proof of her greatness. In reality, it reminded everyone exactly what Clark is, a game changer when the shots fall and a liability when they don't. Yet, the SeatGeek plugs and like, share, subscribe sign-offs only underline the truth. This was less about basketball and more about brand. Just the beginning? Or just another night of hype dressed as destiny?